No credit for that movie. How you doing, Philip?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing great. Philip's running for president of the United States of America. Us, you
That's
didn't think of
right.
that, did you? Us.
I don't know.
Us.
I might have thought of that before somebody else.
Maybe you did.
Yeah.
And so great to have you here, Philip.
It's good
And
to be
man,
here.
it's great to meet your family, too. Those two lovely children, James and Stella.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great kids.
Yeah, they take after the daddy.
Oh, I thought you were there.
I am.
Oh, now I got it.
That's what I meant.
I see. Sorry about that. It's early still. Kim Kelly's here. Kim, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
And you tell us about your nonprofit or y'all's nonprofit.
Absolutely. So I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit. It's called Uniting America. We have four main focuses, but our main focus and our big project right now, we combat child trafficking. Right now, our big focus is we're building a center for the survivors of child trafficking, because when we rescue these children, we need a safe place to put them, and unfortunately, that doesn't exist otherwise.
And the United States, we're number one. We're number one. We like to say
number
that.
one.
We're number one in
We are the
human
problem.
trafficking,
Absolutely.
sex trafficking, human trafficking,
Absolutely.
stealing human beings, kidnapping kids and adults, right? Or
It
just
can be
kids?
kidnapping. It can be in a variety of ways. It's all tragic for the children. And what's most tragic is that human trafficking as a whole is a terrible thing. But when you narrow that down to child trafficking, we're talking about the sale and exploitation of children. We're talking about humans who have no voice, who can't advocate for themselves and can't protect themselves. They can't outsmart or overpower a predatory adult.
Jeffrey Epstein. You know that name. Everyone knows that name.
Yep.
He committed suicide in a jail cell by hanging himself, shooting himself like 20 times, reloaded, and shot himself. That's a hard sell, but they don't even care. I mean, they blew Kennedy's head off right out in front of God and everybody. And there may be a message there as well with Epstein. That list did they, you guys, have you heard, did someone produce that list? I mean, is there a list?
Yeah.
If there is?
Well, yeah.
And
I've
you
seen it.
think Epstein thought maybe that would protect him?
No, I mean it's. So he was running a business, and just like every business, they keep books. I mean, that's what it boils down to. So they keep books. It helps their client list, their financials, and the list was so long that I mean, you have to keep up with it. Not only that, it was powerful people. You know, our previous our president that we have now, he was on the list. We've had other presidents that
Joe
were on
Biden?
the list. Yeah.
Jeez.
Trump was on the list. His son Don Jr. was on the list. There was a lot of powerful people on that list. And the reason why that list has not been shown, and the reason why it disappeared, and that stuff was ordered to be done away with or destroyed, was because of the sitting president at the time. He didn't want people to know that him and his family were on the list. And that's the truth. And if you don't believe that, then
Were you still working for the government when that happened?
yeah, I worked the case.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
What can you tell us?
what I just told you.
Kim, I'm detecting a little bit of attitude, but
Let me translate. So another thing people should realize about this situation, because while I'm glad that it finally sort of, in a small way, made it to the media's attention like 10 years after it should have, but realize it's not the only situation, right? Realize Jeffrey Epstein wasn't the biggest, baddest guy. He was the provider, if you will. He was one of many.
Yeah, he was a government employee. See, our government
because
was running
this guy
that.
was a school teacher, right?
Yeah, it was
one
something
time,
like
and then
that.
all of a sudden he's a billionaire.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was, he was just he was a scapegoat. He was the front man. Our government was running that. And all we did was move it to a different location.
Wait,
I know exactly where that's at, the new location.
So Epstein Island was real.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
What is it with grown men wanting to hook up with children?
I don't know. You're going to have to ask the people that you guys keep electing.
Oof.
Because for some reason, all they got to do is stand on the stage and say, "Yay, God! Yay, God! Yay, Jesus! Yay, Jesus!" You know, that's a good man right there. He can say God and he can say Jesus. He would never do anything to hurt anybody. And then you see on the news where they're having sex with a child. or they're
Yeah.
protecting a pedophile that wants to rub one off to some wrestling students or some stupid crap like that. You people got to do better.
Are you saying that you get what you put up with?
You get,
I'm saying we should not put up with it.
yeah, you shouldn't put up with
No,
it.
Ted Haggard, who led the largest flock of Christians or evangelicals in America, he was the personal, what do you call it, spiritual advisor to President George W. Bush.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that rallied the troops, Pastor Ted Haggard, to get the church to the polls so that W could win a re-election against John Kerry, because things were not going well with the Bush administration come election time. And so they put on the ballot gay or should homosexual couples be allowed to adopt children. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it was Ted Haggard that stirred up a lot of things that stink and said, no, they shouldn't. If you're a Christian, you'll go vote for George W. Bush, and he will not let this happen. And then it came out that one of his boyfriends, a male prostitute, who was evidently Ted Haggard was a regular customer, but Haggard would stop by and pick up some meth, then go meet up with his homosexual lover, and they smoke meth and have sex.
Yeah.
And the prostitute, the male prostitute, called into a radio station, busted him out. You guys remember this? It's happened in Texas, Colorado. And the reason he did it because he saw Ted Haggard on TV saying, this is an abomination, blah, 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 should not be allowed to adopt children. He's like, wait just a minute, that's not Ted, that's Ricky, my client. And he busted him out. But all he had to do, and this is what he did, Ted Haggard busted. He said, it wasn't me, it was a Democrat pretending to be me. I didn't say that, but what he did say.
Well, that would work now.
It would now.
They would come up with some stupid QAnon crap saying it was CGI or something. It's fake and it's Satan. It's Satan. Satan did it.
The devil made me do it. I've used that a few times.
I think we all have.
And I've also used, that wasn't me. It was a Democrat pretending to be me.
Yeah.
But so Haggard finally admitted it. Well, he admitted some of it. He said, yes, he did in an interview now. It said that he did stop by and pick up some meth. He said, but we didn't smoke it. Which a lot of people do that. You just pick it up and just it's just
hang out with a prostitute,
it's a conversation
talk
piece
all the time.
Yeah. And he said that he was not gay, but he was suffering from same-sex attraction syndrome.
Yeah.
What is that?
You think I'm making that up, don't you?
I've never.
Well, nobody had to them, but he went to counseling and they prayed the gay away. And he kept his church.
Of course he did.
Until he got busted again and again, and finally they're like, okay, we can't keep
We're not going to give you our 10% anymore.
Same-sex attraction syndrome.
Yeah.
Same-sex
I've never heard
attraction
that.
syndrome.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's fancy though.
Yeah. And it makes now when you hear this, folks, if you don't remember that or were not following politics back then, and also they were able to, George W. Bush, who dodged the draft in Vietnam, so did Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld. Oh,
Don't forget about Trump. He dodged it too, remember?
Yeah, well, sure he did.
Yeah.
Bone Spurs, they called him President Bone Spurs.
Yeah.
But
Freaking cowards.
John Kerry was running against Bush, and I don't care about either party, and I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to make a pitch for John Kerry, but John Kerry did go to Vietnam, and he had earned multiple Purple Hearts, and you would have thought, because it was so well done, the propaganda campaign for Bush. Now, he didn't go to Vietnam. He went to the Texas Air National Guard, so he was protecting Texas's border in case Oklahoma decided to invade.
Yeah.
And Kerry was a swift boat captain with multiple Purple Hearts, but you would have thought that it was Bush, the war hero, and Kerry, the draft dodger. You know?
Wow.
Because people will absolutely swallow anything
Yep.
when they think that in this case, God is on their side. They were convinced by people that were intentionally lying to them, but it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah.
What is that, Kim, that it just doesn't seem to matter? It's because, and the reason I bring all this up, I think we tie it back together as to why there's no presidents, no presidential candidates, no governor, no one elected official that brings up about the United States being number one when it comes to sex trafficking, human trafficking, taking people's kids, however it's done in many different ways, you'll explain it, taking their life from them. And because of their perversion and these pedophiles, something that if we did, we'd kill ourselves, and that's to violate a child. I would not be able to live with myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would kill you before you ever got the chance.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the offer.
Yeah.
And that's unforgivable.
It is.
Absolutely.
Taking a child's life from them.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing. Their life has changed. It's pretty well over. Their innocence is gone. They're done. They don't never fully. They'll never have a normal life.
They will not. You're right about
It's
that.
irreparable.
It rewires their brains.
Yes.
Now you can, if you catch them early enough and they're strong enough, but they can work their way through it.
Yeah, but
and
it's
live a normal
always
life.
there.
But not many
You can choose to heal, but it's still something you have to deal with for your entire
That's
life.
right. Yeah.
No child should have to go through that type of torture, and no child should have to heal from that for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting, because we're talking about religion and how people justify it. Now, I'm going to get into my perception of the mind of a predator. But first, I want to bring it to the Bible because, for those who don't know, I was born and raised in an international religious cult. And trafficking was one of the many forms of abuse. And unfortunately, it was tens of thousands of adults and tens of thousands of children. And this was a Christian cult. Now, here's the thing. I was raised on the Bible and a lot of other really perverted beliefs, but I can sing the Bible in 3 languages, and that's a cult joke. I also have a really dark sense of humor. So here's the thing. When we're talking about...
That was that went right over Philip's head.
No, he's just heard
I'll
it
explain it
before.
to you later. Go ahead.
So, if we're looking at Christians and their tolerance for this type of abuse, I have a lot to say to them. So, as you can imagine, I am mature and healed enough to understand that it wasn't Jesus and God and the Bible abusing tens of thousands of us children. It was humans abusing power, using religion to control and profiting from the abuse and exploitation of children. Okay, so that's my mature, healed, perspective
about
of it.
as far away from Jesus' teachings as you possibly could be, right, Kim?
So let's talk about
Right.
Jesus' teachings when it comes to the children,
Okay.
and then let's examine Christians and whether or not they're following the teachings of Jesus
And also,
Christ.
I want you to comment on, because a lot of times the go-to excuse is, well, don't get down on religion. It was a false prophet. It was. Yeah,
Oh,
so-
yeah. People tell me all the time.
But people, even when they find out, they do nothing about it. They just go right on.
Absolutely. So here's a rhetorical question for anyone listening. Is the church leading by example in the fight to protect children? Second rhetorical question. Is your pastor, preacher, person talking about child trafficking in the United States? It's a rhetorical question, and every time I do a speaking event or a live stream, whether there's hundreds or thousands of people listening, I have never gotten more than 2 people raising their hands saying, yes, my pastor is talking about this. Making sounds with their mouth, by the way. I'm not even asking for action. I'm saying, are they talking about it?
If somebody's listening right now getting upset about this, saying, I'm a devout Christian, how dare you?
Oh, I'm
What
not
would
done
you say
yet.
to them?
Keep listening, girl. I'm not
Okay.
done. Okay. So here's the thing. A lot of people say, oh, I'm very sorry that happened to you, but those weren't real Christians. All right. So back to my rhetorical question. Well, where are the real Christians? So let's now talk about what Jesus said about children, because Jesus said a lot of great things in the Bible, and look, there's a lot of wisdom in that book. Now, there was this one time Jesus was talking to a bunch of people. Some children tried to come up and talk to him, and they try to make the children go away, and he said, hey, let the children come over here to me. So in context, he was talking about children. The irony here is that some church people will say that, no, he was talking about the church. No, read the Bible. Talking about kids. The kids came over, and he said, it would be better for you to hang a millstone around your neck and to drown in the bottom of the sea than for you to offend one of these little ones. Now, here's the interesting thing. There were 2 times in the Bible that Jesus got kind of gangster. One was the one time he went to church as an adult. The one time
Money
he went to
changers,
church.
right?
And he flipped tables, and it was pretty cool.
Right.
Second time was when he made this one kind of almost violent threat. And it's interesting because scientifically you cannot actually put a millstone on your neck. It's like a, however many tons this weighs, but that's not a normal corporal punishment at the time. So in my opinion, Jesus was kind of pissed off, and he got a little creative, basically saying, go kill yourself before I kill you. Do not offend one of these little ones. He didn't say violate or defile. He said offend. So lots more I could say there, but that's what Jesus said to do. That's what Jesus said. Okay. Now, by the way, that verse is repeated in the Bible twice. Now let's go back to the example of Christians who are.
We're going to get to the kids and try to save them. But first, we've got to do something about these drag queen brunches. You understand priorities.
Yeah,
Last night I did a live stream with some very well-meaning believers, and they asked me if it was okay for their opening video to be about that topic. And I said, no, absolutely not. That has nothing to do. That is unrelated. It may even distance people from this message because it is so unrelated to child trafficking. Please don't cloud this message with your narrative. And I said it very nicely.
Well, you communicate very well. I've never walked away from a conversation with Kim going, I'm not sure what she meant by that. Have you?
Pretty direct.
And but Kim, it is not many shows would take this on and talk about it.
Right.
As adults, that says a lot about us as a country, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've become pathetic. We've become weak. We've become sheep. We're controlled by a narrative which is controlled by the far right and the far left, which is combined is still the minority of people in the United States. Basically, the ignorant are making the decisions for us, and I'm tired of it.
Well, I'm not sure they're ignorant. I think they're very intelligent schemers, narcissists.
Well, the leaders are. I'm talking about their base.
Right.
The leaders absolutely are. All the leaders are doing is they just see that they're picking out the bad apples. They see what's weak within our nation, and they're using it in their favor. And we've got a far left that doesn't know up from down unless somebody tells them what up and down is. And then we've got a far right that just follows along with blind faith, and they'll believe anybody that says God or Jesus. And I don't think they can read to even know what the Bible truly says. If you read what the Bible says, then you would find out that what you were doing is not what you're supposed to do, and you're not a Christian. If anything, you're the complete opposite.
Like when you get a chance, remember we talked about that book. Remember How to Win Friends and Influence People? Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. Should I read it?
That's an attempted humor.
Should I read it?
No, I understand your how frustrating it is and how maddening it is.
Yeah,
what do you do? Because people, and I tell you, we have the First Amendment here in America. We have separation of church and state. We have quotes from the founding fathers that.
Well, the founding fathers weren't even Christians. That's another thing. If you read their quotes,
Mike Johnson said they were.
Nah, if you read their quotes and you read the letters that they wrote back and forth to one another, they made fun of Christians. They said, but we've got to have Christianity in the nation because we can control the people if they're Christians.
Well, now, Kim, you think he's trying to tell me that the Pilgrims came over here to escape the church? He's not trying to say that, is he?
I mean, it's not like that's in history or anything, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. So they did that. And the reason the separation of church and state is in folks, there's a lot of people who say today, no, it's not in there. That's a lie. It's not in there. It's not in there. It is in there. It's not worded that way, but I can read it to you, and you can tell me what they mean by that. It's in the reason why it's in there. Well, one of the reasons is, you know, who asked, who called? Was it Jefferson they called or Madison? Saying that you got to protect us from this church.
Yeah.
You know who placed that phone call? Well, not phone call, but I think they emailed Jefferson. You know who did that? Asked for protection?
Who?
Another church in Danbury, Connecticut. because they had some differences in how they interpreted the Bible, and they were being threatened to be killed. That's and he promised. Thomas Jefferson promised, you will never, ever have to worry about that in the United States of America. We are still the only, first and only country that has in the Constitution, it's a secular Constitution that's a godless Constitution. And people, I'm afraid, and I have friends and family listen, go, what are you talking about? Well, I'm just not going to play along with it anymore because it's hurt you, and it's hurt our country. And it's gone too far. And we've got to grow up out of this and talk about these things if we're going to change things. And you can pretend we're not in the top 20 any longer. You can pretend we're still in the top 20, I should say, in the American dream, which some say they call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it. That's social mobility. We're not in the top 20 in the American dream anymore. But yet we just, I guess it, well, you know, if there's nothing will get our attention any longer. I'm afraid.
The longer we keep blaming each other too, like the Republicans will say it's the Democrats' fault and vice versa, the longer we keep allowing them to distract us and disunite us and divide us, the weaker we are. And they know that. Divided, we will fall.
What happens?
Yeah, we've become a nation of victims. And I think it's pretty pathetic. Or at least the ones that get the attention, which are the far right and the far left, which luckily is the minority in this country.
Right.
But they are the vocal minority.
Well, yeah,
they sound like it, and that's the thing.
Yeah, but that's media. They get used.
Here's the thing, and the right wingers have used talk radio they've tuned that up like a fiddle because it sounds like there's a lot of people that believe this, and back when they first started it, and they're like, okay, so in that group mentality, group think is so dangerous, and they knew that. They couldn't do it until the Reagan administration killed the Fairness Doctrine to allow people like Clear Channel to buy up thousands of radio stations so they could put the fat drug addict on and spew propaganda when he wasn't. What he put like 50 Oxycontin or hydros in his water every day during the show. 50 of them in one setting.
Whoa.
I mean, that'd kill a stinking horse. I'd take a half of one just to try to ease the pain, but 50 of them, and he got around his neck was put by Donald Trump. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Geez, what was it? What was the award they gave him? The
Some
honor.
kind of honor, yeah.
Lord have mercy. It was one of the greatest in this country. I can't think of it.
I can't either, but I can picture it. Like what it looks like, and that doesn't do any good on radio, does it?
We're going to be embarrassed, but that's my fault for bringing it up and not clearing it. But that's what I do. You know, and,
yeah.
So what's happened to us? Why don't we recognize this? Is America caught up in a trauma bond? I mean, is it Stockholm Syndrome? I mean, do we love the people that are abusing us? Is that what's going on here?
I think there's a few layers to it. So what I've identified, not only from surviving and overcoming this, but now dedicating my life to advocate for this and to actually do the work, there's a few categories of people, and this is just my opinion. There's the people that don't want to know. They say, oh, that's too dark. Oh, I can't deal. There's the people who say they care and do nothing, and their hashtags mean nothing because they do nothing. And there's very few of us, very, very, very few of us who are actually committed to doing something, to taking action. We can unpack that further, but it does come down to fear.
We've got a ton of texts from the Advanced Rehab and Medical text line, and we're going to address all those when we return. I'll ask Phillip these questions that are being sent in.